Hey guys, welcome back. Today's video is a weird experiment, and I think you're going to like this because I've got the results at the end, obviously, but we're going to see if this loud bucket of rocks can produce a better foam brick than a kid's toy? Yeah, you heard me right. I'm using a kid's rock tumbler to see if I can produce a better looking foam brick than the old-fashioned way of a bucket with rocks. Come on, let's get this adventure underway. So this being an odd one, I decided that I would start out by doing two different types of pink insulation board to make the bricks. I decided I would do my traditional way by taking a tinfoil ball that I rolled up and putting some texturing on it before cutting these guys up, and then I'd throw the textured ones into a coffee can, bucket, whatever I had, with some rocks in it to do the handshaking or traditional method, and then I would leave one completely alone and then cut it up, throw it into the rock tumbler. Now, in reality, you don't have to do this step if you're going to do the hand traditional one. I just do this because I think it adds a little extra texture to the brick for the handshaking. And to be fair, I probably shouldn't have did this since I wanted to do an experiment where I was testing to see how the results from handshaking versus the other way the tumbler would come out. So I got out my Proxxon hot wire cutter table because this does make it a little bit easier, but as always, you do not need a hot wire cutter to do this. If you have one of these rock tumblers and you want to see this experiment, a razor knife, a handheld hot wire cutter, heck, even a sharp kitchen knife will do the job well here. You just want to make sure that you've got a nice uniform consistency on the thickness and length of your bricks. That's what I like the Proxxon the most for. It really does keep those consistent lengths and thicknesses together. And that size for me is about 1/4 inch thick by about 3/4 of an inch long. And as you can see here, this one's textured, so this is one of the ones that I'm going to be throwing into the bucket with rocks that I'm going to shake by hand. Because if you're going to do this experiment, you gotta have your original, the control versus your new attempt. So, like I said, when you do this, if you do it my way, you'll see that you just cut a long plank, basically equivalent, and then you'll turn it sideways and just cut it, and you end up with the thicknesses you need if you're going to use my measurements. Obviously, you can come up with your own. And one of the nice things too about having pre-made bricks, especially a lot of them, is that if you do have a crafting project where you're like, I want to build a fake wall, I want to build a real wall, I want to build anything that involves bricks, you've got a whole ton of them. So being as that this was an experiment, I didn't want to overload this tumbler, so I put in a small handful of rocks and a small handful of bricks. Just enough that I thought, I could get a good look and compare to the ones I would be making later out of the handshaking method. So it's kind of ironic that, I saw this rock tumbler for sale. It's a National Geographic one. And my first thought was doing this experiment. And eventually, one of my friends bought this because they saw it on clearance for me and wanted to see what I would do with it since I'm a crafter. And finally, with a bunch of things going on, I decided that I would just see how it turns out. Now, I check this about every 15 minutes to see how the rocks were turning out. And to be fair with you, it took me about 45 minutes to an hour to get the results I really was hoping to see. However, that 45-minute wait went by fast because I wasn't really worrying about it. I had just turned this rock tumbler on, walked away, and forgot about it for that time. I think I was watching a YouTube show or something. I don't remember. But I do remember that eventually my alarm for the 45-minute mark went off. By that I mean it was the third alarm at 15 minutes of me checking it to see how the texture was looking. And at that moment, at about 45 minutes, I thought it looked pretty good. I did do a later experiment where I let it run for like an hour and a half, and the notice between 45 minutes and an hour and a half is negligible. Maybe if I let it run longer, it would look different, but I really didn't see much of a difference after 45 minutes and an hour and a half. And I kind of spent a little bit of time here running this through my fingers, feeling it over, looking it over, checking it out, and I was actually pretty happy with the way it was looking. I was surprised. I mean, my big issue right here was the small batches. And as you can see, I'm going to hold it up here real quick to compare it to one of my older handshaking bricks. And I'm really not seeing too much of a difference there at this point. Obviously, if I spent a little bit more time than this few seconds here examining it, I would find something. So, obviously in the namesake of science, I decided to get these handshaking ones made so that I could finally see what was up with it. And I did this just pacing back and forth for probably a good 15 minutes. Man, were my arms friggin' tired. So after putting these small foam bricks through both methods, using the rock tumbler and the old school rocks in a can, shaking them by hand method, I'm really impressed with how both ones actually turned out. See, the tumbler's got this kind of chill vibe to it. You just kind of make your bricks, toss them in there in about 45, 50 minutes. I'd say give it about an hour in honesty. You've got a great, nice looking brick with subtle weathering to it and a nice rounded edge. See if I can get the camera focusing it here. Now, you can't see a lot of the details from the rocks hitting the sides, but you can see the edges. And they are a nice weathered round edge. It's a very chill vibe to it. It just doesn't tire you out. On the other hand, handshaking method is a lot quicker. 5 to 15 minutes depending on how weathered you want those edges to look. It gives you a brick that is a lot more weathered and smoother rounded edges that don't have a very new appeal to them, as you can see. And it does actually cause the size to shrink a little bit more, because I cut all my bricks at the same sizes and measurements. Now the tumbler method is definitely less labor intensive though. It's almost like a set it and forget it, like I said. While the handshaking requires more attention and effort, both methods do give you great results, in my opinion. But I can see how the handshaking method is going to be more useful if you're on a tight deadline. To be fair, you want to get a ton of bricks done quick. Just shaking that can for 5 to 15 minutes is going to be way quicker, and it's going to get you a lot more bricks done a lot faster. However, I can just throw them into the rock tumbler, a handful at a time, walk away, do other parts of a project, come back, have a handful of bricks with a very consistent edge to it. That was one thing I liked versus the handshaking. I got a consistent rounding. The bricks didn't all look the same, but the rounded edges all had about the same look to them, which I really enjoyed. So guys, what do you think? Would you prefer to use the old-fashioned shake it by your hand in a rock and a coffee can with a bunch of rocks? Or would you want to just go out and spend $35 on a kid's toy rock tumbler and just set it and forget it? I'm really curious to hear your thoughts, guys. As always, if you enjoyed this video, why don't you do me a favor? Hit that like button. Throw me down a subscribe if you can. Maybe go check out my Patreon. And if you really like things and you like this video, maybe go check out a few of my other ones where we actually use these kind of bricks in building some awesome terrain. Thanks, guys. I appreciate your time as always. Stick around for another video if you want to. If not, have a great day, guys. Get out there and craft something awesome.